I'm Monroe Herring from Blountville, Tennessee, in the southeastern synod of the ELCA. In the mid-90s, around 95 or 96, I'm not sure now, it's been such a long time, but there was a flooding occasion in Albany, Georgia, and I went down to work with some of the relief and rebuild. I was a little late getting there. The ELCA was closing up on their relief work, and the Mennonites were continuing on. So they asked me if I would work with the Mennonites, which was quite acceptable to me. I arrived there late on a Sunday, spent the night with meeting some of the workers, and on Monday morning we went out to a project they had been working on. It was the home of an elderly black gentleman who had his house flooded during the crisis. And they introduced me. They said, we have this Lutheran that's going to be working with us. And then I was assigned a job. And later that morning, about break time, all my co-workers were sort of laughing and giggling. And I said, did I do something wrong? And they said, no. I said, have you noticed that this gentleman here has not taken his eyes off of you? Well, I hadn't even noticed him, but they said, well, watch him. So after the break time, went back to work. Sure enough, I could look around and he would be somewhere watching me. And this continued on up to lunchtime, and I said, well, what's going on? What did you tell this fella? He said, we didn't tell him anything, but he came to us this morning. He said, how can you work with that man? Now, I've had a beard. It might have been a little longer than what I have right now. But anyway, I said, well, what did you tell him? He said, well, now this man said, hey, how can you work with this man? Said, and they asked him, what do you mean? He said, well, you said that he was a Lucifer. So after that occasion, I was Lucifer for the rest of the week working with him. And that's about the end of my story, but I think it tells about how unknown that the Lutherans are. Yeah. Of course, if you got to realize that this was a gentleman from the deep South, and the people that introduced me was from up in Pennsylvania, and there was a language barrier between them, same as my little bit of accents that I have here. So anyway, I enjoyed that, and I explained to the gentleman that I wasn't a cult devil worshiper or whatever, and but he never did quite understand what Lutherans were.
Did you talk to him more about Lutheranism over the course of the time that you were there?
Yes, I did. There wasn't actually a Lutheran congregation in town, but it wasn't in his neighborhood. But I told him that Lutherans were basically one of the founders of the Reformation that brought about a change from the Catholic Church. And he really wasn't familiar with the Catholic Church either. He was a born and bred Southern Baptist man, and they haven't been in contact with much other congregations or denominations.
How was it working with the Mennonites?
Oh, it was a wonderful association with them. They were very well organized, and a lot of their people were working in their church. They have an obligation of 2 years of community service, and several of these people were fulfilling that obligation.
And do you think that says anything? I mean, your home congregation, do you often work with other churches, other faiths, or was that kind of a new experience for you to go down and work with Mennonites? Well,
I have over the years been in contact with several different denominations. I guess the Mennonite Association is probably the more unusual for me. I've been basically in contact with most of the main lines of Methodist, Presbyterian, etc.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of work were you doing as the flood relief?
Actually, at that time, I had just been retired about a year, I worked as a maintenance mechanic at a chemical plant for over 30-some years prior to my retirement.
All right. Well, thank you very much.